Jacek made a slight mistake.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning. Welcome to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us as always. Going to do a little stakes recap this morning. Take a look back at not only yesterday, but there was a race a week ago, last Sunday, that we'll take a quick look at as well. Then a little handicapping a little bit later on. And then towards the end of the program, we will also do some stakes recaps, but we'll look at yesterday's New York Stakes towards the end of the show. Dave Grening from the Daily Racing Forum, the New York correspondent for the Daily Racing Forum, will jump on towards the end of the program to take a look at the Cigar Mile and some of the other stakes on the card yesterday at Aqueduct. So all of that on today's edition of Racing Across America. And as it is Sunday, I also want to remind you that if you'd like to come down to the Clubhouse Racebook a little bit later on, you can catch all the football action and all the racing action as well every Sunday throughout the NFL season right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, let's jump in. And as I say, I wanted to go back and show one race that was run last Sunday, last week, as Del Mar wrapped up their fall meet. They had the annual Del Mar Turf Festival, a few great days of stakes, grass racing, and one of the races on the weekend was the Grade 1 Matriarch, and certainly it had some East Coast feel to it, with Chad Brown having a number of horses in the race. Sharing was in there also, and I touted watching the race last Sunday morning. I said tune in a little bit later on Sunday to see Sharing, the really nice 3-year-old turfer from Graham Motion. Sharing a little bit disappointing in the Matriarch, but if you're a Chad fan, and Chad had a very good weekend, Chad Brown, very good weekend out at Del Mar last week. Tammy here, a Chad Brown runner, was the favorite in here at 2-1. A little bit disappointing, the number 9 horse Tammy here, but it is a Chad Brown exacta. Villadera, the number 6, will get it done over number 4, Blowout. Sharing, the number 3, also a little bit disappointing as the second choice at 3-1. Sharing can do no better than 4th. But Villadera, again, getting it done on Joel Rosario, the number 6 horse. You can see the price there. In the Juddmonte colors, gets up, nicely timed ride to bing the other Chad horse on the line, Blowout. So again, it was a Chad Brown exacta, 5-1 over 4-1. Villadera came over from Europe, and in the first start, the Intercontinental in June at Belmont ran 4th. Then comes up and wins the Delarose at Saratoga at 6-1. Wins the Noble Damsel in September down at Belmont at 5-1, and goes out and takes the Matriarch at 5-1. You know, Chad, Joel Rosario, horse in some good form. That said, there were other good-looking Chad horses, including the horse that ran second, Blowout, who had finished behind Villadera in the last start as well. Running third was Juliet Foxtrot, talented runner for Brad Cox, who was coming off a win in a grass stake at Pimlico last time. That one at 5-1. So again, the Chad exacta, a little over $48 there, and Villadera, $12.80 for the win. As I say, a little bit disappointing. Well, the Chad favorite, Tammy here, obviously disappointing, running 6th, but Sharing, who was, right there, but we were back nose, a half, a neck back to Sharing. but puts a little bit of a blemish on the record in that the first time the horse had finished out of the top 3 positions in what was the first race for sharing against older horses. But we will continue to see what sharing does as that one goes forward, because I'm sure we will see plenty of good performances still in the future for that one, the Grand Motion Turfer, who again, up until last Sunday, had just a spectacular season. And as I say, was right there, nose, neck, and half a length in the Grade 1 in the first start against older. So, no disgrace, certainly. Let's go down to Tampa, and yesterday featured some nice 2-year-old racing that we'll take a look at. Both the boys and the girls, and that includes a little bit later on. We'll look at the Demoiselle and the Remsen as well in New York. But they had a couple of nice little 2-year-old stakes down at Tampa. The inaugural was for the 2-year-old boys, 6 furlongs, $100,000 up for grabs. I liked Poppy's Pride, had that one on top. Poppy's Pride, the number 1 horse, gets out, takes them all the way. The final chart margin, 2 3/4 lengths. Al Haybay runs second, the number 5, and the Alligator Hunter runs third. Arrest Me Red was an interesting horse that I had used underneath, but it was a horse that was moving from the turf, so you weren't quite sure, and you could see the 2 horse kind of pulled up the back of the pack after having been pretty much towards the back for a lot of the way around. So you would think, and you could see a 2-year-old this time of year. Do you try the dirt race at Tampa, and then you think, maybe Sam Davis and Tampa Bay Dirt. If you have a talented 2-year-old on turf, and this horse had won a stakes on turf up at Aqueduct the last time, so I can see them kind of taking the pop on dirt. But you think Arrest Me Red now, maybe back to the grass. But Poppy's Pride, who I said I had liked with a couple of stakes wins coming into this already in a 5-race career, had won 3 starts prior to yesterday, 2 of those stakes. So now Poppy's Pride, 4 wins in 6 starts, 3 of those stakes races. And we'll see. I mean, as far as a future for a 3-year-old when the calendar turns in a few weeks, what they do, as with Arrest Me Red, you would think Arrest Me Red, hey, let's see what we have on the dirt. A horse like Poppy's Pride, who so far has not gone longer than 7 furlongs. Yesterday's race was 6. They're always tempted, let's stretch them out and see. And you would think at some point they'll probably try that with Poppy's Pride, but they certainly have, at this point anyway, a nice 2-year-old sprinter. And we'll see, as I say, how that all works out going forward. A little bit later on the card at Tampa, it was the Sandpiper. This was for the 2-year-old girls. Nice field in here, nice full field in here. I liked a horse called Gulf Coast, the number 10 horse. That one will wind up running second as the second choice at 3-1. The favorite, just a little ahead on the odds, the favoritism goes to Feeling Mischief, the number 5, who I had right underneath. So this is my top 2 in flip-flopped order. And again, they were 1-2 for the betting public. Betting public nailed it here. And you can see number 5 getting it done over number 10, as I say, for me in flip-flopped order. But Feeling Mischief came in. I like the horse that won a race at Colonial in the career debut, followed that up in an optional claimer at Keeneland, which wasn't quite as inspiring, but I thought the potential was there in the 3rd career start to maybe get back to what we saw in the career debut at Colonial, which was a nice effort and was going to fit in very nicely with these. And I was kind of surprised the betting public tilted in that direction too. Now at 3-1, they weren't all over this horse, but they did make Feeling Mischief the favorite because again had faded a little bit at 6.5 last time at Keeneland, so that may have played into it too. The win at Colonial was 5. The little bit of a fade at Keeneland was 6.5, was going 6 yesterday. So they may have thought the extra half furlong was going to make a difference. It certainly didn't hurt yesterday, as you can see. But Gulf Coast is going to be nice as well. Ran second there, and only the 2nd career start for Rudy Brissett and Winstar. won the debut up at Indiana Grand, and then followed up, second start, stakes race, decent little second. Running third was Little Nesso, the number 2 horse at 15-1. But the two logicals in there, again, for both me and the betting public. Betting public had it right, I had it flip-flop, but you wound up with a $40 and change exacta with, again, a couple logicals, because, again, it was a nice full field of 11, and the favorites were not overwhelming favorites. It was 3-1 and just a little over 3-1 for those two in there. So again, it was a nice little exacta there if you jumped in using, as I say, the two that seemed kind of logical in the mix there. All right, let's move on and take a look at more 2-year-olds. And these are Maryland-bred 2-year-olds on a little Maryland-bred stakes day yesterday down at Laurel. But I wanted to show this one because it's our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds. They wound up with the favorite in here, morning line favorite. It was likely to be the favorite going off, and it was at 30 cents to the dollar. Jackson Traveler, who was 2 for 2 so far in the career. They bought this horse at Ocala April, which was actually this year held in June. So, you wind up picking up a nice little Maryland bred in June. They debut the horse at Pimlico in September, went off by 10 lengths. Then they come back to Laurel and go in an open optional claimer and win that by 4 lengths. And then they step into the state bred stakes yesterday, the Maryland Juvenile Futurity. And Jackson Traveler is going to be the number 3 horse you can see in the West Point Silks, and gets it done. Chart margin was only 3/4 of a length, as Singlino, the number 4 horse, does make a little bit of a late run here. And this was a horse, Singlino, who had shown some talent earlier in the career, but in the James Lewis last time threw in a little bit of a dud, so it was hard to know what to make. But I think Singlino is okay. This race kind of validates that maybe that last race was a little bit of an aberration, because the horse had run very well before that. And so I think Singlino is okay. So to beat Singlino, I think, was all right. Jackson Traveler, I don't know whether there was any point where you were really sweating it out if you had Jackson Traveler, although Singlino did close the gap to, again, chart margin of 3/4 of a length. They were 3 lengths then ahead of the 3rd place finisher. But again, I just wanted to show that. Always fun to watch the 2-year-olds this time of year. Always like to root for our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds. And they had another one, another nice runner, 2-year-old that in 3+ weeks will be a 3-year-old, and so they'll have a nice little 3-year-old to watch. And again, it'll be a question mark of what's in the future. The first 2 starts, 6 furlongs yesterday, 7 furlongs. If you have a nice 3-year-old, you always do at some point, it seems like, feel obligated to try to go longer. So we'll see what they do with Jackson Traveler, but 3 for 3 so far. So nice little purchase at OBS for our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds a little bit earlier this year. And finally wanted to take a look at one more 2-year-old race. This one for the girls. It was out at Los Al last night, or our time last night. It would have been, 3, 4, about 6 o'clock last night. Mile and a 16th for the Grade 1 Starlet. Only had a field of 5 show up. Princess Nora went off as the 3-5 favorite, the talented runner from Bob Baffert, that went off as the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. But there was that whole debate about the buyer numbers, which were a little bit light for Princess Nora, and so a lot of people were taking a stand against in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. She was right up in the mix there before fading to finish 5th, where maybe the buyer contrarians were validated. But yesterday went off as, again, the 3-5 favorite versus 4 others in the Starlet, and she was in the lead coming into the stretch, subsequently gets pulled up. Princess Nora's the number 3 horse, and Victor Espinoza pulls her up. There was a little something wrong with, I think, one of the front legs, but the Bob Baffert runner gets pulled up. The other Baffert runners run 1-2, however. Varda, the number 5, gets it done at 17-1, and Calypso, the number 1, runs second at 11-1. The Baffert exacta winds up paying $96 for a buck, with, again, Varda coming up, as you see there, late to get it done under Drayden Van Dyke. Varda had won the career debut, had run second behind Princess Nora in the Chandelier. Calypso had run 3rd, then 2nd, then 1st breaking her maiden in a stakes race last time at Santa Anita. So both of them came in with some talent. It's just Princess Noor and Astute, who was disappointing in here, running fourth at 6-5. Those two just took so much money that it inflated the prices of the others. Now, subsequently, the reports out of the racing forum that I read last night, where they took Princess Noor back to the barn, they did an X-ray. The X-ray seemed to come back clean, and it seemed like it was just a fluky thing where Baffert was speculating she may have hit herself with her back hoof, or just kind of bruised herself a little bit. It's one of those kind of wait and see kind of things. But again, the report was that the X-ray was clean, which that's good news. So she had walked onto the van by herself and got van to the backstretch. They checked her, and it seemed to kind of all check out. So, knock wood, she winds up in good shape going forward. All right. I'm going to take a break, and when we come back, we will do a little bit of handicapping for Sunday afternoon. And then, as I say, a little bit later on, Dave Grening from the Daily Racing Forum will join us, and we'll recap those stakes from New York from yesterday as well. All of that coming up as Racing Across America continues on a Sunday morning. Stay tuned.
Where's the best place to find your favorite teams, your favorite food, daily drink specials, and wagering on live horse racing? Legends Field Sports Bar, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. Get your game on day or night with 75 flat-screen TVs, tournament-style pool tables, a private banquet room, and live horse racing. So if someone asks you, where's the best sports bar in the capital region? Tell them Legends Field Sports Bar, inside the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. It's in front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a three-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. As always, thanks for joining us. We'll take a look at the late pick 5 at Aqueduct today, give you some ideas there. Yesterday was a mandatory pay in the Empire 6, and again, it was hit last weekend for a big amount, taking the pool down, but there was still $67,000 in, and anytime you get one of the mandatory pays, they put the money in the pool, and they put almost $1,900,000 in, and it was a decent little payoff if you had it yesterday at Aqueduct. The 20-cent pick 6 paid over $6,000, and I'm just looking back at the payouts here. True Timber paid just over $16. Malathot $2.90. So there's one people could have maybe singled on. Timeless Journey at $21 offered a little bit of a puzzle perhaps. $6 on Prairie Fire, a main track only horse that looked kind of logical. So out of the last 4 winners, you had 2 very logical ones in there, and True Timber was certainly very playable. Sharp Star was the second choice, but the close-up second choice behind Nona Madeline in the Go for Wand, and then the sequence started out with a $14 winner out first. So there were 3 really logical horses and 3 that you may have had to search a little bit, not super crazy necessarily, but you wound up with potentially for your 20 cents, $6,000 plus. Again, those mandatory pays, it's worth taking a little bit of a pop, putting the ticket together. At 20 cents, you can put together a nice ticket. Particularly, again, yesterday, if you had the opinion on a couple of those logicals and maybe felt like I can stand alone there and go deeper in some of the other legs, you certainly could have played around and wound up maybe having a little bit of fun yesterday in the Empire 6 with the mandatory payout. We'll see if we can give you a little fun potentially in the Pick 5 today at Aqueduct. And again, we'll have to see what the weather was supposed to clear out. Yesterday there was some rain as they started the day, and so they were off the turf in the 7th race yesterday, and the track certainly had water on it. We'll have to see how it plays out today, and I haven't seen any scratches or changes yet, so keep that in mind as we toss out some thoughts. But the Pick 5 today at Aqueduct will kick off in race number 5, State Bred Optional Claimer, non-winners of 2 other than the 1-turn mile. I have it 1A, 2, 5, and 3. Yankee Division on top for me. Both halves of the entry are interesting, and they have different jockeys' names, so both may wind up going. But when I use them on top like this, I feel like I have to split them up if I do have a stronger opinion on one, and I did on Yankee Division. A best effort by Not That Brady belongs right in the mix, but I thought off the current form, certainly the preferred half of the entry for me was Yankee Division. Goes out for Rudy Rodriguez off a 3rd place finish in a similar event last time, but won a allowance race up at Finger Lakes 2 back. So just seems to be in some good form right now. Junior Alvarado on board this afternoon. Gets the outside kind of attack post position. Will tilt towards Yankee Division. 6%, however, goes out for Mike Maker. And I believe the morning line favorite. I won't be surprised. Oh, no. West Point's Chestertown is actually a morning line favorite. But I won't be surprised if the Mike Maker horse takes some money. It is Mike Maker. Manny Franco on board, a horse that is also in very good form, tossing some numbers that are comparable to the top pick, and in fact finished in front of my top pick last time. So everything's kind of pointing towards 6%, maybe being the one of those two that takes the money. We'll see. Chestertown, however, David Aragona made that one the morning line favorite. 2 back won the Albany up at Saratoga, 3-year-old New York bred stakes race. Used to wind up that Big Apple Triple, which I don't think is a thing anymore. It started down at Belmont, then you had the New York Derby, then you had the Albany to wrap it up. But it's always kind of a fun at Saratoga, fun little 3-year-old race for the New York breds. And Chestertown took down the Albany this year, tried the Empire Classic last time, couldn't get it done against the likes of Mr. Buff and Bankett, stepping up against older company. So we'll see this afternoon, moving out of a couple of stakes races, really 3 stakes races, because 3 back had tried the Peter Pan, and moving down into, the more proper now non-winners at 2 other than maybe the Tonic that moves Chestertown forward in this group. I have no argument with that. I just thought the other 2 as 4-year-olds versus the 3-year-old. But we're getting late in the season. This is a seasoned 3-year-old. We'll see how it plays out, though. In the 5th at Aqueduct, I have it 1A, 2, 5, and 3. 6th race at Aqueduct, New York Stallion Series. $250,000 up for grabs as they will travel 7 furlongs. I have it 11, 1, 12, and 3. Layaban on a prayer just seems interesting off of the win last time in the Maid of the Mist. First couple of starts were against Maiden Company, a 3rd, then a little bit of improvement in the 2nd start to run 2nd when stretched out to a mile. Those were both down at Delaware against Open Company, but then came up to New York to try the 1-turn mile at Belmont in the Maid of the Mist, stepping in against State Breds. Buyer number went forward 20 points. So I'm not sure whether the horse likes the New York cooking or the Belmont Strip or facing the State Breds. But over at Aqueduct today, cutting back to the 7 furlongs, off some good workouts at the Delaware base. I'll put Layaban on a prayer on top to follow up today. Jeremiah Engelhardt having a pretty good meet, and he brings in the Maiden Flowers Fortune. This one improved nicely in the 2nd career start. Running a decent 2nd in the debut in the slop up at Finger Lakes. The number, however, was a little light, but the number improved significantly and improved enough to put the horse right in the mix here, particularly if we figure 3rd start, maybe some further improvement, because if this horse does step forward another, few points, then the horse is really right in the thick of things. So Flowers Fortune in the second spot for me, actually in the third spot for me, excuse me. And those two bookend Gray's Destiny. I did use the rail horse from Christophe Clement in the second spot. Ran a good winning race in the debut with a number that stacks up nicely with this group. It was on a sloppy track, though, in an off-the-turf event, so you're never quite sure what to make of those. And the one post position from 7 furlongs may be a little bit of a detriment. We will see. But again, I put Grey Destiny in between Leobon Prayer and Flowers Fortune. Shane's Pretty Lady for Todd Pletcher. Good-looking debut win. Then they got ambitious and tried a stakes race in the second start and ran 5th. Just might benefit from that, though. Sometimes, we'll see these kind of situations. 2-year-olds, they get the nice win, and then just kind of in the next logical spot, the condition book isn't offering much of an alternative than to go into a stakes race and face similar types. So they'll try these stakes races, and a lot of times it's just maybe a little too stiff, but they benefit from that education, and with that one under the belt, they can move forward. So Shane's Pretty Lady, Joel Rosario hopping on board this afternoon. Joel Rosario, who I understand is going to head out to Southern California for the winter season this year, but with him on board, might be a little bit interesting. It may be a little bit of value in the sixth race, 11, 1, 12, and 3 in the sixth race. Seventh race is the Garland of Roses, $100,000 up for grabs for the fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, going 6 furlongs. I have it 1, 5, 7, and 2. I put Lady Ninja on top. Moves into the barn of Shug McGahee after running for Richard Balthus out in Southern California for really much or most of the career, certainly the career on the page, but hasn't been seen since February. That's the big question mark. However, has put in some nice workouts, including a nice bullet just 3 days ago for Shug. So it seems like they have this horse on her toes. The blinkers go back on today. She's run well in the blinkers before. I'll put Lady Ninja on top. Jose Ortiz elects to take them out, but that layoff does raise some question marks that have to be answered. On Her Way goes out for Charlie Baker. Comes out of a win in the Pumpkin Pie last time, so seems to be in some good form. The race 2 back was a little bit of a dud in the Gallant Bloom. I say dud, ran second. Dud number-wise. I mean, the number was a 79, the buyer, as compared to the 91 last time. So there was a little bit of an inconsistency with the numbers. That said, dud was probably the wrong word. The number was a little bit light as compared to what this horse typically fires on a better effort. But the Gallant Bloom was also a second to Frank's Rocket. So it was a decent little performance, again, with a number that was maybe a little bit light, but then followed that up with the 91 buyer last time, so seems to be in good form and worth taking a look at. Another horse coming off a little bit of a layoff, not as long as Lady Ninja, but Honey, I'm Good, hasn't been seen since a win and a stake at Belmont back in June. Comes back for Steve Asmussen off of that layoff. That race is good enough to put the horse in the thick of things here. The workouts aren't necessarily indicating anything special, but there is a steady string of workouts. Saguaro Row in the 4th spot for me also comes back from a layoff. Hasn't been seen since the Fritchie down at Laurel in February. So again, some of these just have some question marks to be answered as far as fitness on a comeback. The horse with the recency is On Her Way. The horse that looks to have the talent, if ready, is Lady Ninja, but there are some question marks that do have to be answered for some of the horses in here. In the Garland of Roses, race number 7, I have it 1, 5, 7, and 2. Another New York Stallion Series race is lined up for race number 8 this afternoon. Again, $250,000, 7 furlongs the trip. I have it 11, 7, 8, and 9. Uno on top for me. Todd Pletcher, runner by Leoban, debuted on November 12th and won pretty nicely with a buyer number, a 76, which, this time of year, New York bred 2-year-old, that's a pretty solid number. Stacks up nicely with this group, so the win in the debut, which validated their Ocala purchase price of over $250,000. So they may have a nice little New York bred here. and potentially, potentially they have a nice open runner too. But certainly they're putting up 67,000 in a maiden special for New York breds. You take your shot there and take down the majority of the 67,000. And then they're putting up $250,000 in a New York Stallion Series race you're eligible for. You'll try that too. But this is a horse that, again, they paid $250,000 for. I'm sure they're thinking and hoping, let's try some open company down the road. But you can't ignore the $250,000. So again, this is a horse that may have open company potential, but comes in and tries this restricted stakes race because there's a lot of money up for grabs. So Uno on top, Dreamer's Disease in the second spot. This is actually Kentucky bred. And don't forget, these New York Stallion series are tied into the Stallion. So these are not all New York breds, which makes it a little bit saltier, but it is a restricted stakes. But this horse has been racing in open company throughout the career, and last time out for Robertino Diodoro, tried the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. In the field of 14 there, showed a little early speed before fading to finish 6th behind Essential Quality. Prior to that, had won an optional claimer at Keeneland with a number that matches up nicely with the top pick, and ran an even better number in the 6th place finish in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So Dreamer's Disease is the morning line favorite, no argument there, and will take a lot of action. Again, stepping into this restricted stake after having faced good company in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and having shown a little early punch in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile as well at 1 1/16, and now cuts back to the 7. So Dreamer's Disease maybe might turn out to be the one to beat. Hold the Salsa is yet another New York bred and has been facing some New York bred stakes company. Won the Boneyard 2 starts back, and then disappointed a little bit last time behind Brooklyn Strong in the Sleepy Hollow, but potentially was flattered by that one's performance yesterday. So Hold the Salsa, interesting in here as well. Horn of Plenty, one of those that broke the maiden in the career debut, then tried stakes company in the second start. And as I said earlier, sometimes you get ambitious. They try that stake start. They don't live up to what we saw in the debut, but they benefit from that stakes experience. That might be the case with Horn of Plenty at 10-1. We'll see if that one can run well and be in the mix. Kendrick Carmouche on top after his nice win yesterday in the Cigar Mile. All right, we wrap things up at Aqueduct in that late pick 5 today with a maiden 20 claimer going the 1-turn mile. That'll go off at about 4:15 this afternoon. I have the 9th at Aqueduct, 1, 2, 4, and 9. Miss Moon Pie on top. Linda Rice trainee moves out of the barn at John Service after a couple of starts at Monmouth and at Parks in maiden special company. Didn't show much in either of those, but now comes back, as I say, for Linda Rice for a much reduced, this is a significant move. Maiden specials down to this maiden 20 this afternoon. I'll put that one on top. No gimme in here. I mean, 7-2 on the morning line. Be interested to see where the betting public goes. I think with the scenario and looking at the complexion of the rest of this field, horse will take a little bit of action, but I'm not sure where it will end up vis-a-vis the other horses in the field, because there are others in here that maybe on the numbers have a little more interesting potential talent, but some question marks. The two I used right underneath, Carly O and Kitten's Romance, on the numbers seem to be pretty solid, but both have only been on the turf so far. And it's that time of year where you have to take these horses with a grain of salt, because the turf season is coming to an end, and trainers and owners are saying, what do we do? Let's try a turf race. If the horse runs well on the let's try a dirt race. If the horse runs well on the dirt, we can keep running all winter long. If not, do we go south? Do we put the horse away for the season and come back when turf racing starts again? But I think you'll see a lot of that over the next few weeks with these mostly or all turf performers trying the dirt, and owners and trainers, I think, are just trying to solve a puzzle a little bit of what to do with these horses for the next 3 or 4 months. And I think that could be the case with Carly O and Kitten's Romance. And it's a puzzle for bettors too, because sometimes they come out, they do take to the dirt, sometimes not so much. Carly O I put in the second spot mainly because was up here a few weeks ago on the Oklahoma track, dirt, and ran a decent little workout up there. So I thought maybe that one would take to the main track, given what we saw in the morning. Not so much so as having any hints from Kitten's Romance, but there was enough talent there that I went in that direction. Hot button I used in the third spot. Two turf races, fired some good numbers. Moved to the dirt last time and threw in kind of a clunker. Maybe the question was answered with that one, but Jose Ortiz jumps on board. He was on board 2 starts back. I was willing to give that one maybe another look, but as I say, that one may have already tipped their hat on the dirt. In the 9th race at Aqueduct, though, for me, 1, 2, 4, and 9. All right, that is going to take a look at today's late pick 5 at Aqueduct. Hopefully we gave you a couple of good ideas. We will certainly be back here looking at it live this afternoon on OTB Live. We will kick off. First race at Aqueduct today is 12:20, Gulfstream 12:35. They'll be in our mix this afternoon. And again, with that kind of timing, we'll be back in a couple hours, a little under a couple hours for OTB Live to take a live look at the races this afternoon, as well as this preview. But we will do a little review right after this commercial break. As promised at the top of the show, we'll reach out to our friend Dave Grening, New York correspondent from the Daily Racing Forum, get some of his thoughts on the New York Stakes action yesterday that was highlighted by the Cigar Mile. All of that right after this. Stay tuned. Having trouble finding us? It's actually quite simple. Whether online or on your TV, it's never been easier to watch and wager on championship horse racing with Capital OTB. Simply log on to capitalotbbet.com. There you can watch our morning shows, live stream races, and wager on our state-of-the-art wagering platform. You can also watch from the comfort of your home on Spectrum Cable Channel 1250 or Fios Channel 467 and win more with Capital OTB.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play. In a recent study of some of the top online wagering sites, Capital OTB won big in total player rewards, far surpassing some of the best-known wagering sites in America. While other rewards programs simply offer you points redeemable for gift cards, Capital OTB's rebates are paid to you in actual cash. Plus, Capital OTB gives you full and immediate access to your money. So if all you're getting now are points and gift cards, join Capital OTB Player Rewards today and get cash back. Visit CapitalOTBBet.com and sign up today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. As promised before the break, joined now by our friend Dave Grening, the New York correspondent for the Daily Racing Forum. We'll get some thoughts on yesterday's stakes action, which kind of put an exclamation point on the New York season, as it always does, with the Cigar Mile being the last Grade 1 of the year. Dave, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
Very good. Happy to have you on board to talk a little bit about the action yesterday. Just set the scene a little bit. It seems like, just watching the simulcast signal, certainly a little rain early on. I'm guessing the rain let up, but the track certainly had moisture all afternoon.
Yeah, the bulk of the rain came in the morning, and then we started at 11:30, so it was still going pretty well. I think the biggest concern yesterday of whether actually the card would be run or not was the wind. It seemed like the wind was going to be in the mid-20s, bordering on 30 miles an hour, but it didn't really get there. It was steady, but it wasn't brutal, and it wasn't that cold. So and the rain kind of subsided a little bit early. I think they said around 3, and I think by 1, it was 12:31. It was pretty much done. Yeah, but like you said, the track had already taken them over an inch of rain.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. I noted maybe Andy Serling tweeted it out. Somebody that there is still some turf racing potentially scheduled for next week, though.
Yes, the weather forecast is favorable, dry, and toward the end of the week, 50s Thursday and Friday. So I think they carded extras, put them on the overnight to see if they would fill, and they got 2 races for Thursday to go. I think they're going to try basically one on each course, so 2 races through the weekend if they can get it. I don't see any rain in the forecast until Sunday, and let me tell you, they can't tell you what's going to really happen Wednesday, no less next Sunday. So who knows? I think we could get the next weekend. I could see us running 2 a day through next weekend.
Yeah, interesting. All right, let's go back to yesterday, and we'll work our way back from the highlight, the Cigar Mile. The storyline here was Performer in the second start back off the layoff. Performer had shown so much talent early in the career, then had the big layoff. The comeback in October was impressive, and so Performer went off as the 4-5 favorite. Performer's going to be the number 1 horse here. Disappoints a little bit because eventually he can't even get past Snapper Sinclair for second. Snapper Sinclair, the number 3, runs second, but True Timber under Kendra Carmouche just looked fabulous yesterday. Wins off chart margin of 5.5. And as I say, under Kendra Carmouche, I believe this was Jack Sisterton's second grade 1. He had Vexatious up at Saratoga, but this was the first grade 1 for Kendra Carmouche, and he clearly seemed emotional in the winner's circle after the race, so it was a fun story there. Give us some of your thoughts on the Cigar Mile yesterday.
Yeah, the race kind of fell apart a little bit with the weather, coursing, Ferenz Fire, Mind Control, grade 1 winners themselves to scratch and point for another race in Florida. Performer, as you mentioned, he was only making his second start in a year. We really didn't know how good he is, and I don't think he won or lost yesterday. We were going to know much more, based on track and field. He broke awkwardly. He's kind of he didn't really stumble, but he just seemed like break awkwardly. It's really the best way I could put it. And he was last, and that's not where they wanted to be. And that's not really where you really wanted to be at all. Yes, not saying there was any real bias, but it was just on a wet track like that, it's hard to make up as much ground as he needed to make up, especially when he typically lays a little bit closer to the pace. Conversely, True Timber got a sweet trip because Mr. Buff and King Guillermo went at each other through pretty fast fractions, especially for the day. And Carmouche had the horse sitting pretty third, about 2 lengths off the pace, and when he made his move, those two were softened up, and no one really came from the back. It was a perfect trip, and as you mentioned, a kind of a cool story for really Carmouche and the horse too a little bit. I mean, this horse has run in 19 stakes races, 17 graded, and it had never won one. And as you mentioned, Carmouche's first grade 1, and he does get emotional, and it's a great accomplishment for him, and he's also going to become. He's also going to win his first NIVA riding title, barring a massive day by Jose Lozcano. So that'll also be a first for him, which I think is key going into the winter. So Carmouche is riding a lot of momentum here going into the winter meet. The horse, True Timber, had run third in this race last year to Maximum Security and second to Pattern Recognition the year before. So he had whatever, I don't want to say he's a horse for the course, but he was a horse for the race. So he's made the third time the charm with a sweet trip. I know that Kieran McLaughlin, who had trained him before, always kind of liked him, so they thought they were, thinking he was this superstar grade 1 type of horse, but, good enough to win a stakes race because they ran him in so many, and he ran well in many of them. And he, got a deserving stakes win yesterday, and as you mentioned, Carmouche got a deserving grade 1. A little bit disappointing that, as you say, Performer couldn't get by Snapper Sinclair, but I just think he had too much to do. It was wide in the stretch and probably just was, a bit tired late.
And I will say, I was a little bit surprised that King Guillermo got the action he did. He went off as the second choice at 3-1 off the layoff. It was a horse with clearly plenty of talent, but hadn't been seen since the Arkansas Derby in May. And to come back in the Grade 1 Cigar Mile seemed kind of a tall ask to go off at that short of a price. I was surprised the betting public jumped on him in the way they did.
Yeah, I guess the only thing about that, Seth, is where else were you going to go? And the horse did have some name recognition with being a 3-year-old and being sort of on the Triple Crown Trail, which was an elongated Triple Crown Trail in 2020. The owner being well known as a former Major League All-Star, and getting a lot of publicity during the week. So I guess it was sort of, where else would you go? I didn't really like him yesterday. I thought it was a tall order for him. I thought he might have been better suited to run in a race like the Discovery, stay against 3-year-olds, use that as a way to come back. I didn't think the Discovery this year was an overly strong race. But then when you look at this race, the way it wound up shaking out, this race wasn't overly strong either. So, he had a graded stakes win, and the horse that won the race didn't. So I can't blame him for trying to take a shot in a Grade 1 like this, but I didn't necessarily like him. I didn't necessarily think he was going to duel with Mr. Buff, but so he did, and that's what happened.
All right, let's move on to the Demoiselle. This was a really nice race. Malathaat came in 2 for 2 for Todd Pletcher. I took a little shot with Milfew, the 3-horse from Bill Mott, and I thought I was getting the nice trip, and at the top of the stretch, I thought I was in pretty good shape. Malathaat was a little further back, and again, as you say, tough to make up ground on a day like this, but Malathaat did, and as they came to the wire, Malathaat gets by to become 3 for 3. This was a $1 million purchase at Keeneland last year, has lived up to it so far. Now 2 stakes races under the belt. Malathaat's going to be the number 1, and you can see just keeps coming here. Here, I think Milfew's got it done at about the 8th pole, but does get run down late. I thought it was a nice performance by both of the top 2 runners, and you would have to think they probably have nice futures ahead of them as 3-year-olds as well.
Totally agree. Malathaat, if you watch the race from the middle part of the turn till about the 3/16 pole, you think she's got no chance. At the 3/8, Johnny goes to the whip. At 5/16, he goes to the whip. He's got really no room at the, no clear space at the quarter pole. The other filly, Milifay, gets 3 lengths clear at the 8th pole. You think that there's no way she's going to be able to catch up, and then Johnny finally is able to get her in the clear, Malathaat in the clear, and she just kind of took a few strides to get going. But once she did, she lengthened her stride and really gobbled up the ground. The other filly, Rosario, mentioned that maybe she got a little lost, lost a little bit of focus when she was clear by herself like that. So I wouldn't be stunned if you saw her next time with a set of blinkers on. But Malathaat, 3 for 3, a horse that's regally bred, being by Curlin. In fact, I guess the Curlins ran 1, 2, 3 in the race. And out of the mare, Dreaming of Julia, who put in some monster performances in her career. She won an overnight stake at Belmont by 16 as a 2-year-old. She won the Frazette narrowly, but then she won the Gulfstream Oaks by 21. Was favored in the Kentucky Oaks in her 3-year-old year. Was beaten by Princess of Silmar. But this is a well-bred, well-trained, and they learned a little bit about her yesterday. Her wins earlier in her career, her first 2 wins were pretty easy, clean trips, and yesterday she overcame a bit of adversity, successfully stretched out around 2 turns, and I agree with you. I think she has a bright future.
Yeah, those were a couple of nice-looking 2-year-old fillies, and again, another 3 weeks or so, they become 3-year-olds. All right, let's go back to the Go for Wand a little bit earlier on the card. I will admit, when I handicapped, I tilted towards Nona Madeline just because I thought maybe has the class edge on this bunch. But I did it, as I said yesterday during the handicapping show during the afternoon, not with a lot of confidence, but I put that one on top. Sharp Star I had right underneath. And it was hard for a handicapper to know exactly what to do with Sharp Star because that last race with the 101 buyer was just such an aberration. Could the horse come back to it? Well, turns out the horse, I don't know what the buyer, I didn't see the buyer yet, and I don't know if the horse came back to that, but did come back to a nice performance with a duel with Portal Creek, who I thought was the interesting horse at value. And coming down the stretch, Portal Creek looked pretty good, the number 2 horse, but does get run down by Sharp Star. The eventual chart margin is a neck. Those 2 are 12 ahead of the 3rd place finisher, Nona Madeline, who had to be considered a little bit of a disappointment in here. But the top 2, it's a nice battle, and Sharp Star, as I say, does validate that race we saw last time out. Your thoughts on the Go for Wand?
Yeah, my thoughts were, my heart sunk when Sharp Star got by because, yes, in looking at the race, I tried to go for a little bit of value there, but I did not like Nona Madeline. You're supposed to play against Sharp Star, a 3-year-old filly, New York bred, 3-year-old New York bred filly coming off a monster race, biggest figure she ever had. She's, now taking out older fillies and mares, and you're kind of supposed to take a shot against her and just looking for some other horse. Portal Creek is where I wound up, and, that 7-1 looked pretty nice, but until Sharp Star got by her. But
I was
look,
right
it a
with
nice
you.
Performance by Sharp Star. Yeah, gutty effort. They seem to have found her whole card. When you look at her, she's now 3 for 3 at a 1-turn mile. They did try a couple of 2-turn races. She didn't run that poorly against State Breds in the race up at Saratoga. Not the funny side, the female version
The
of
Fleet
that
Indian
race.
Fleet Indian.
Fleet Indian. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I
Yeah.
had, She ran well. They took a shot in the Black Eyed Susan. A little bit too much to ask there. Cut her back to the 1-turn. I think she likes to be involved in the race. And in her 3 1-turn mile races, she's unbeaten. And I think they would be best suited to keep her in those types of races. Now, looking at the schedule for her into 221, I don't see any of those types of races until March, but there are a couple of 7/8 races that you got to figure, given that her running style she's involved, that she could run in a race, in a race like the Interborough if they wanted to try a graded race, or there's a New York bred race for 4-year-old fillies, in January, February, that would lead you to either like the Heavenly Prize or the Biagio's Rose in March. But they should have enough, opportunities to keep her at the 1-turn mile in 2021 that, she should still have more success going forward.
And as you mentioned, Sharp Star, a New York bred, and the New York bred's a nice day yesterday because we'll go back and we'll take a look at the Remsen. And Brooklyn Strong is going to upset here as a New York bred who they purchased at Ocala April, which wound up in June this year. Purchased this horse for $5,000, subsequently break the maiden for a claiming tag at Delaware in September. Then they run third in the Boneyard. They win the Sleepy Hollow, and then try the Grade 2 Remsen and win that. The horse is now 3 for 4. And again, let me reiterate, they paid $5,000 for this horse earlier this year. Nice performance by number 3, Brooklyn Strong. I took a little pop with 10 for 10, and it was another race where coming around the turn, I thought, I like the ride Jose Ortiz has given this one, and I think I'm in great shape. And it's a ding-dong battle down to the wire. Winds up to be a neck, though, for Brooklyn Strong. As I say, a nice day for the New York bred program.
No question about it. New York breds. It's weird if they told you two of the stakes would have been won by New York breds. You would have figured maybe Mr. Buff would have got it done in the Cigar Mile. But look, this is another race where if you're looking for some value, you had some 10 for 10 to me, and even Shug said it. He wasn't sure how far this horse wanted to go. I mean, the horse was loose on the lead through modest fractions. If you couldn't get a mile and 1/8 that day, you wonder if he ever will be able to do it. Now, look, he only got beat a neck, but the horse that I was kind of on, and Known Agenda was the horse I liked a bit because I just thought he got it out a maiden win. I know the time wasn't very fast, but none of the times were fast at Aqueduct during the opening weekend. But the fact that they were 20 lengths clear of the third horse in that race, I thought said something for Known Agenda, and also the fact that maiden win came in a mile and 1/8, so I thought that gave him a little bit of an edge. But Danny Velasquez, the trainer of Brooklyn Strong, he was confident that his horse would stretch out, and look, he's by Wicked Strong, who did win the Wood at a mile and 1/8, and at Aqueduct, and he was coming off a nice race at Belmont, in which he was doing his best running late. So it wasn't it shouldn't have been a total surprise that he could get the distance. It was just a matter of whether he could class up, and he did. And I got to give that guy Velasquez a lot of credit for the job he's done with this horse. He snuck him in. He got him through a maiden 40. Which, look, at the worst thing that would have happened is they would have made a $35,000 profit, right? if plus the purse at Delaware. And I don't know if this horse is a legitimate Kentucky Derby horse or not, but it fuels the dream. And he's got. He's already paid for himself. He's made almost $200,000. It was a solid effort. He looks like he wants to go this distance, and I'm sure he's going to be based in the Northeast this winter at Parks. He could come back to the Withers, or they could go to Florida. But they should have a lot of fun. And like you said, when you pay $5,000 for a horse and you're already out by December 6th of your 2-year-old year, the rest is gravy.
But those are the kind that keep us all dreaming. Dave, before we let you go, I wanted to touch on a couple articles you've written over the past couple of weeks. We talked about Kendrick Carmouche, but you had an article also titled for Jockey Junior Alvarado, Everything is Coming Together, and it seems like Alvarado has been having a nice couple of months.
Yeah, he's been winning the right races. He's not winning, it's more quality over the quantity of races that he's winning, but he did, last week, our big weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, he won 4 of the 10 stakes that they ran. And he's winning for the right people, Clement and Mott. which I think is one of the reasons he's going to go to Florida for the winter. Rosario, who rides a lot for Clement, is going to go to California. So look, if whatever Clement's going to ride down there, I know he gives a lot of these grass horses a little bit of time, but he could give, Alvarado could get some business from him. Mott's got some nice 2-year-olds turning 3 that hopefully Billy sticks with, and his owners stick with Junior. It's a good opportunity for Junior to, try and race his game a little bit and try and get into that upper echelon in the jockey colony. So it's a good time to try Florida. And he's riding some momentum, having won a bunch of stakes in the last week.
Are we getting a feeling for the jockey colony that'll be there throughout the winter? Because I know they put out the protocols just recently, and they're saying, if you're planning to be here, get in touch with us. But do we have any idea of who we might look for? New faces, old faces?
Yeah, I think your sort of core group here will be Manny Franco, Jose Lozcano, Can't Sell, Dylan Davis, Kendrick, obviously, and I think some of your new Louis Cardenas will be here. From an apprentice standpoint, Louis Cardenas and Charlie Marquez will be here. I think some of the new faces, I believe Trevor McCarthy will get here at some point in time. I'm not exactly sure when. And I think Katie Davis, his fiance, and Dylan's sister and Robbie's daughter will be here. So I think that's sort of your bulk, your core group there. Pablo Morales is coming in from, I believe he's riding at Tampa. And you have Luis Castro Rodriguez Castro, I should say, and Sebastian Saez. So I think you'll have a decent group, a decent core, and some guys trying to crack in. Now the rules here. So if you want to ride here in the first quarter of 2021, you need to ride between December 10th, which is Thursday, and December 31st. Like a guy like Rosario, who is going to California, but is going to ride here next week, that sort of qualifies him to be, quote unquote, a New York winter jockey. So let's say they ran that horse Brooklyn Strong in the winters, and let's say Rosario wanted to come back and ride him. He would have to test twice, 2 negative COVID tests in a 5-day span prior to that race, and then he could come back in. So that's certainly possible to do. But if you're a guy like Junior Alvarado or the Ortiz brothers, who are now done riding in New York after today, they would not be able to ride in New York until the spring meet, Aqueduct spring meet, which I believe starts April 2nd. Yeah. Now that's all contingent on the whole vaccine scenario. Sure. Like if the vaccine becomes available to athletes, or in February, March, or whatever, then that could all change. But going, as the information that we have right now, the way I laid it out is how you can ride here in the wintertime.
Interesting. And one more thing, one more article that I wanted to touch on that I found surprising when I saw your headline, but I guess it's a sign of the times. We have Kieran now as a jockey agent. Gary Contessa retired from training, and I was kind of surprised. I'm reading the headline here. Trainer Jimmy Toner saying goodbye to New York. As I say, when I saw that headline, I was a little bit surprised. Fill us in there.
Yeah, he talked about doing this about a year ago. When you factor in, there's several factors in play here. One is the high cost of doing business in New York, the high cost of living in New York, with workman's comp insurance and the labor board being a factor here in New York. And another issue for him, or a factor for him, is his daughter Catherine is based in D.C. She's an immigration attorney down in D.C. and he wants to be closer to her. And based at Fair Hill, where his owner, I think it's Nicholson, has a barn, he can put his dozen or so horses in there and be close enough to his daughter. Also, being at Fair Hill allows you the luxury of being able to ship wherever. You're not beholden to any racing jurisdiction. If you find a race at Pimlico or in Maryland or Delaware or New York or New Jersey, you're able to go there and without somebody saying, "Hey, how come you're shipping out of town?" So a number of issues there, a number of factors. I hate using the word issue. A number of factors in play for Jimmy's decision, but I know it was something he was thinking about even going back to last year.
Interesting. Dave, always appreciate the conversation, and tell people pick up the hard copy of the Racing Forum or go to drf.com online. You saw Dave's Twitter handle as he was talking as well. Always puts out great timely information. Dave, as I say, I always appreciate the conversation. We'll talk again. If we don't talk to you in the meantime, have a happy holiday.
Same to you and your viewers.
Thanks. Dave Grening from the Daily Racing Forum. Some good conversation about New York racing, which, as I say, kind of put the exclamation on the season yesterday with the last Grade 1 of the year in the Cigar Mile. Did it in fine fashion with the weather played a little bit into it, but we had 4 nice stakes yesterday with some horses that will be worth watching. All right, I'm going to wrap things up for this edition of Racing Across America. I see the NYRA pregame show is underway, so we'll send you there. Don't forget, racing and football today here at the Clubhouse Racebook. We'd love to have you come down and watch all the football action and all the racing action every Sunday during the football season, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Again, I'm going to wrap it up, but I will be back in an hour and a half or so, a little less than that, an hour and 15 maybe, to kick off OTB Live for a Sunday afternoon. So thanks for tuning in this morning. We'll see you a little bit later.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.